which means the beginning, so technically we're going back to the beginning. Genesis chapter 9, starting with verse 8. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be cut off by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I rain clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind. So God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all life on the earth. Now, one way to understand the Bible as a whole book is to look at the covenants that God makes. So I guess the first question you probably have is, what's a covenant? It's not a word we use a lot. The place it's most often, although still rarely used today, is in relations between people. Usually marriage, but not always. A covenantal relationship. A covenant could be translated, and often is translated, as promise. So God is saying to Noah, I'm making a promise here. Now there are 5 great covenants in the Bible. And I'm going to go over all of them one week at a time between now and Easter. And the first covenant is this covenant that God has made with Noah. This promise that God is telling Noah, but actually the covenant is not just for Noah. Because God said, this covenant is for you and your sons and all of your descendants, and for the animals that came off the ark with you and all of their descendants. So this covenant is established for all time, for all living things. And what is the covenant? God said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I just destroyed all life on earth except for you. Except for you and your kids and all the animals you had on the ark. I'm never going to do it again. Now, so, you have to notice, though, it's very specific. He doesn't say, I'm never going to destroy the earth, all life on earth again, except for handfuls. He says, I'm never going to do it with a flood. So, fire's still on the table. Earthquakes are still on the table. God's still got plenty of ways that he's allowed to destroy all life if he chooses to. very specific on his promise, but it is established for all times. And it's unconditional. Noah doesn't have to do anything about it. God doesn't say, okay, Noah, if you do this, and your descendants do this, I won't destroy them by a flood. There's no rules given to Noah. Just God is saying, I promise this. And then to mark the covenant, God says, I'm putting the rainbow in the clouds as a sign of the covenant. But what follows next is very interesting and it's often forgotten. Who is the sign of the rainbow for? It's not for Noah. God doesn't say, I'm putting this sign in the heavens so that you will remember my covenant. God says, I'm putting this sign in my heavens so that I will remember my covenant. It's like God is saying, I know that in the future I'm going to be tempted to wipe you all out again. But I'm not going to do it. And just to make sure I don't do it, I'm going to put a sign in the heavens so I don't. Now, I don't think of God as needing a reminder. I don't think God keeps a to-do list in his back pocket. Okay, what do I do today? I don't think God forgets what he promised. But he puts the sign up and he says, this is the sign so that I will remember not to destroy you. Again, I don't think God needed a sign. But I think the sign gives Noah and all of his descendants, which includes us, hope. God is so committed to this that he's going to remind himself. And when we see the sign, we will be reminded. This is a one-sided covenant. Most covenants have two sides. Most covenantal relationships, both sides promise something. If you do this, then I will do that. If you pay me, I will work for you. If you don't pay me, I'm not working. That's a pretty good covenant to have with somebody. Certainly not, I will work for you and you can decide whether you pay me or not. Most covenants are a two-way street. My promise to you depends upon your promise to me. This covenant is not a two-way street. This is God saying, no matter what happens, I will never break this promise. I'm never going to destroy all life on earth through a flood again. Doesn't matter what your faith is. Doesn't matter what your thoughts are. Doesn't matter what your attitude is. Doesn't even matter what your actions are. I'm making this promise. And I'm going to keep it. I don't know how many of you have noticed the sign out front. I like what it says. God loves you whether you like it or not. This covenant that God makes with all life on earth is in keeping with God's nature. It is unconditional. God's love for us is unconditional. There's nothing we can do that's going to make God stop loving us. Now, we can reject God. And God could say, come to me, and we can say, no, we're going to do it my way. And as Dr. Phil would say, how's that working out for you? But God doesn't stop loving us. I often heard growing up in the church, you can't earn God's love. But there's a second very important part to that truth. You can't earn God's love because you don't have to. It's already given to you. And I consider myself lucky that my own father's love was that great. I never found myself thinking, what do I need to do so my dad will love me? Sometimes I thought, my dad will be proud of me if I do this. I thought of that a lot. But I never wondered what I could do so that my dad would love me. Because I knew I never had to earn his love. Because I already had it. And that's the way God is. We should not be focusing on, oh, it's impossible to earn God's love. It's impossible to earn God's love because it's impossible to make God stop loving you. There is nothing you can do that will make God not love you. Now, I'm not saying then go ahead and do everything you want. There are things you can do that will make it difficult or impossible for you to spend eternity with God. But that doesn't mean God stops loving you. He just lets you make your own choices and lets you deal with the consequences of those choices. The very first covenant God makes with his creation covers every living thing on the face of the earth. And it requires nothing from his creation. The rest of the covenants will be two-way streets. They will be promises that have to be made and maintained by both God's creation and God. But the foundation of every covenant God makes is found here. God makes an unconditional promise to creation, to all of us. And he establishes that his promises are forever. Our closing hymn is number 482, Jesus is Calling.